It's match day for Arsenal as they take on Burnley at Turf Moor. Meanwhile, Mikel Arteta decided not to shut down rumours regarding Kylian Mbappe, and there's some positive team news to discuss as well in today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Arsenal News Show. Back with you guys for another episode of what is the Gooner Talk this morning, every day at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is very much appreciated. I hope you've had a fantastic week. I hope you're ready for the weekend. I hope you're ready for match day. And first of all, thank you for those that tuned in yesterday. Apologies again that it was a slightly earlier show than usual. That was because Mikel Arteta was conducting his press conference, of course. And I actually said to you all that I was concerned. I was concerned that we weren't going to hit our likes target for Friday, and you all did a astounding job. We got 1,500 likes on yesterday's video, so thank you. We continue with the push for 1K every day. So if you haven't dropped a like yet on today's video, please make sure that you do. It would be really, really appreciated as we aim towards our target once again, as we push towards the end of the season, as this title push goes on, as does our challenge to hit 1K every day. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. I reckon StreamYard's probably been a bit muggy, but we'll see. Yes, it certainly has. Angela, Anns, good morning to you, to Marcus, to Temi, to Rowan, to Franklin, The Process, Amira Red Star, Yomi and Grantley Poos, and Amesy and Kim, Rob, Kieran, Ismail, Input, Paul. We've got Adam and Dylan, Adagoke. We've got Sean and Urban Ghost, Thierry. Paul as well, and plenty more of you guys and girls. This one from Jeff says, morning, first time being able to watch it on YouTube as I'm normally working. I've been listening for the last 3 months on Spotify, so today I can hit the like button. Keep up the good chat. Thanks, Jeff. Much appreciate your time. And to those that do listen on audio platforms, thank you for your listenership. It is appreciated. Do hop over to YouTube, though, and make sure to join in with the 1K like challenge. Right, let's jump into today's stories. We start with Arsenal's under-21s. Back to winning ways. Fantastic stuff for Mehmet Ali, who, of course, has been a little bit frustrated of late. Arsenal have lost a lot of their key stars who went out on loan for the rest of the season. But Arsenal's under-21s with goals from Nathan Butler-Oyedeji, who actually had been spending some time away on loan. He's now back in the side and scoring straight away. Osman Kamara, Ismail Uladamhand, and Jimmy Gower with the goals to beat Southampton 4-2. What that means for the PL2 table is Arsenal are third at the moment. Tottenham Hotspur actually lead the race with 33 points. They've only played 11 games. They've won all 11 of their fixtures. They're having a very, very good season. They're under 21s. And so if Arsenal are hoping to catch anyone, they're going to have to keep on winning themselves. But it seems that they are going to struggle to catch their North London rivals at the moment, but a good win this week, which is very positive indeed. Mikel Arteta conducted his press conference yesterday, and that's why, of course, we had our earlier show, but he discussed a number of interesting points of view. He was asked about Kylian Mbappe, and I think that's where we should probably start, because the interesting point about Mbappe is that he didn't shut it down. He said, well, the reporter was asking, saying, we kind of know where he's going to go. And Arteta was like, do you? In a jokey way. And then when asked about it, he says, when there is a player of that caliber, we always have to be in the conversation. But as you said, it looks like it will go a different way. Now, there were further quotes that actually came out following that discussion, if you like, because there was an embargo section which was actually released slightly earlier than it would do usually. It got released around 11 o'clock, and that continued those talking points about Kylian Mbappe. He said, when there is a player of that caliber, as we've already talked about, we always have to be in the conversation, even though it's in a different way. But the additional quotes, if they can actually, here we go. This is what I want. Where is the additional words? Here we go. You think I'd have this stuff ready, wouldn't you? Yes, he says, why not? He told reporters on Friday, if we want to be the best team, we are going to need the best talent and best players. That is for sure. He is a real, and in kind of talking about Mbappe and what he said previously about Arsenal, talking about Arsene Wenger, he says he's a real French football monument who has left Arsenal. I have not seen many people like this in the world being viewed in such a unanimous way. He also spoke about how he very nearly signed for Arsenal and Mbappe in the past as well. But Arteta turned around yesterday and said, I am not in regarding the conversations about signing Mbappe. Maybe Edu and the owners are, but I am not in those conversations until the last stage. It is so funny, the whole story that has just kind of, I suppose, if you like, snowballed from that press conference. But hearing him talk so openly about it, I think it was great. I think it was great to see him not shut it down. I think it was great, obviously, to see him talk about Arsenal in that manner. I've been waiting for a decade plus for Arsenal to talk about players and transfers like this before, because usually we're so used to, if you ask about a specific player or would you sign them, he's turned around before and been like, well, I don't talk about players that aren't of Arsenal. But he answered this question in a really interesting way. And I suppose because it's been confirmed now that Mbappe will be leaving on a free in the summer, there's more scope to speak about a player like that because you're not having to buy them off them if you were to sign them. So it makes sense that he would now change his tune regarding the answer to that question. But yeah, saying that we have to be in the conversation for the best players in the world, I really liked that answer. He also talked about the latest team news regarding Thomas Partey, which was really, really positive as well, because obviously we hope that Partey does return soon, but it's obviously very frustrating that he's not been in the lineup. He says, no, there are no big setbacks of any of the other injuries, and Thomas Partey as well is progressing really well. I don't want to say too much, but he's looking very good, and he's on the field already, which is great. He also says some of the team have been progressing better than others. We have a training session again today. Some of them have done a few bits this week, and I'm positive that hopefully we're going to get a few back for tomorrow. He was asked if any were ruled out for tomorrow, and he said at the moment, no, which is great. I suppose none are necessarily ruled out, and loads are in contention. And so that could be Zinchenko, that could be Jesus, that could be Tomiyasu, Smith Rowe, even Fabio Vieira could be back soon. And he was asked specifically about Fabio Vieira in the press conference. He said he's very close. He's been training already for a few days with the team. So I think it's very close. He'll be back probably faster than we expected. And he's in a good place. And he was asked if he could play against Porto. And he says, yeah, there is a good chance. There is a chance. Yes. So really positive stuff regarding team news there. Moving into transfers, and Daniele Longo has suggested that Arsenal remain very interested in signing Joshua Zirkzee from Bologna in the summer. He's a player that Arsenal have had an interest from. Sam Dean reporting this story in January. There's a €50 million price tag on the head of the former Bayern Munich player, and whether or not Arsenal end up moving for him in the summer, we will have to wait and see. However, Zirkzee being a centre-forward playing in that attacking position, you'd imagine that he's probably on the list of players that Arsenal are considering for centre-forward, but I'd be surprised if Zirkzee is the number one target. But it doesn't surprise me that he's being mentioned as a potential option that Arsenal are certainly keeping their eye on and considering. So yes, let's wait and see what happens with Joshua Zirkzee in the summer. And lastly, just to discuss this one, according to Alex Crook of Talk Sport, Wolves are said to want a figure of £60 million for Pedro price tag. There's an expectation that he will indeed be leaving in the summer, but we're unsure as to which club are going to be getting their hands on the Portuguese international. But Wolves are said to want £60 million to get your hands on Pedro Neto. Would you pay that? Let us know in the comment section down below. You don't have to pay anywhere near that to get involved, though, in the latest Football Prizes competition to win a signed, not actually this one for some reason. I don't know why I've not changed it. I can show you what the new prize is. It is not. Best of luck to those that, of course, did get involved with the Ian Wright shirt. But the new prize is a Arsene Wenger signed Invincibles inspired shirt. So if you've not yet had a chance to buy a ticket yet, the link to do that is down in the description. Last time I checked, yesterday, already 100 of those tickets have been sold. And I can tell you that more than 200 today have been sold. This one is going like hot cakes. So please make sure, if you do want to get involved with this competition that can win you a signed and framed Arsene Wenger 49 unbeaten Arsenal shirt, a very unique prize. The early bird price is now expired, I'm afraid. It's $3.95 a ticket. If you want to get one, you can buy as many as you like, to a degree, I believe. And there is also plenty of instant win prizes, including a signed Thierry Henry shirt, a signed Bergkamp shirt, a signed Tony Adams shirt, a signed Nigel Winterburn shirt, and a signed Freddie Ljungberg shirt. A very special Arsenal Arsene Wenger themed competition going on there. Best of luck to everybody that gets involved. And there's plenty of other instant win prizes to look at on the website as well. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Okay, then. Right. Shall we jump into some of your questions? I think that we should. The process is Man City fans are convinced that Arteta will replace Pep at City. Do you foresee a situation where we will have to fend off outside interest in Arteta and in the near future? Well, of course, managers being linked with potential moves abroad and potential opportunities elsewhere is always going to be part and parcel of, having a good manager. You're always going to have to fend off the opportunity to, see players arrive or potentially to see players move in different, managers move in different directions. And if you've got a manager that's doing very well, that's just, it's going to be part of the process, if you like, to use it for the lack of a word. But I think that Arteta, his future will lie obviously elsewhere one day. Would he do a Jurgen Klopp and say that he'd never manage another club in England? He certainly didn't deny that when he was asked about it recently. He's got links with Everton. He's got links with City. He's got links with PSG, links with Barcelona, links with Rangers, links with Real Sociedad. There's lots of history for Arteta to look at. And he's still very young in his management. Pep Guardiola's first job at Barcelona after taking on with the youth side led him to Bayern and it led him to City. So who's to say that Mikel Arteta will, of course, be at Arsenal forever? He won't be. There will come a day where Arsenal will change their manager. That day will come one day. But whether he goes to Man City or not, we don't know. And whether he goes during the time of his contract, we'll have to wait and see. But Arsenal are very confident and controlled and relaxed about his new deal. So I wouldn't be worrying about that at this point in time. Maximilian says, 2, I think what Arteta meant by his first comment is that Arsenal should go back for being one of the biggest clubs that should be in the mix whenever players like Mbappe are in transfer contention. Yeah, just to go back to that Mbappe story, I think, and I agree with Drago here, Arteta answered it perfectly. We all know he's off to Madrid, but you want to be in the option when these big moves happen. And I think that's absolutely spot on. I don't expect Mbappe to end up at Arsenal. I don't expect Arsenal to be able to even compete with the financial ramifications of what that deal would entail. But Arteta did answer it perfectly. And I think that he sounded out Arsenal as one of the sides that will be in the market for the big players. And when there comes an opportunity that they can take and they can compete for, they will be looking to do that. Because if we want to be at the top of the game, we need to sign the best players. And that's exactly what Mikel Arteta said. Ezra says, Tom, have you seen the Sky Sports post comparing Saka's stats to Ronaldo's in the Prem? I have indeed. And for a 22-year-old to be putting up the numbers that Saka is putting up, it is absolutely incredible. And the fact that people still don't seem to rate Saka as highly as other players or are now dismissing him against the likes of Cole Palmer, it's crazy. Look at his numbers. They are ridiculous. The greatest of all time, thank you so much for the kind donation. Morning, Tom. Off to the Emirates today. First time in 10 years. I'm excited to be coming home. Hit the like button. I'm assuming that's just for a tour. You'd be incredibly disappointed to find out that Arsenal are playing away from home today. So they won't be at the Emirates, of course. But if you are going for a tour, I hope you have a fantastic time. My first time at the Emirates was actually when they were playing away at Chelsea in that 5-3 win in which Robin van Persie scored a hat-trick. I had a tour that day when I was a youngster, a teenager. And I think I was about 15, 16. And then went to the Blackstock to watch that 5-3 victory. It was a great, great day. Let's go to, of course, the Arsenal women's team are playing. Manchester United, it's sold out. I was speaking to somebody yesterday about this, who's going to the game as well. First time a WSL game has sold out, which is amazing. How ignorant of me. But yes, Arsenal women playing Manchester United today. And there's obviously that big, big pressure on Jonas Eidevall to deliver because the pressure is massive. That's what happens when I'm working in and around the men's game. It's very easy to get so blinkered. How terrible of me. Stephen says, did you see the comparison between Saka and Ronaldo for their first 210 games? Saka has more goals and assists, but is not yet considered world class. Benji says, Tom, who would you sacrifice out of our forward line, including the bench options, to get Mbappe through the door? I think I would go. It's a good question because I think there is multiple options that we've got, to be honest, mate. I think you could drop out Jesus, you could drop out Martinelli, you could drop out Saka. I think there's the addition of a player like Mbappe who can play so comfortably in the front three means that you can change things up. You can create unpredictability about your side and use different combinations. So Jesus would be the obvious one. I think he would start up front if he was to sign, hypothetically. But yeah, that's very, very interesting to see where he would join, isn't it? Just to round up the WSL, because it's certainly something that we should be looking at and why I shouldn't be looking at it as I did so ignorantly today. But Chelsea lost yesterday in their game against Manchester City. A 1-0 win for City have really put them back in the race. Arsenal will go within 3 points of the league leaders if they beat Manchester United today at the Emirates at 12:30. That game will be done before the Burnley game kicks off, so there's no excuses for anyone not to watch it. So let's make sure that we get involved. And a massive congratulations to those that are going today to today's game at the Emirates, because it's a sold-out crowd. And it's going to be a great atmosphere indeed. Sadiq says, Saka doesn't look silky on the eye, and that's why some rivals will never rate him. Saka is effective, and that's more important. I think that there are games where he looks really silky, to be honest, Sadiq. I think there are games where Saka looks excellent, to be honest. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily agree that he's not silky. But I think there are games where he's less effective than others because teams mark him out of games. And when that happens, we need to utilize the other strengths that we've got to try and exploit the spaces that are created when they double up or treble up on Saka as well. Let's go to Rand says it makes the West Ham United defeat even more annoying. Not just for the women's team, for the men's team. That the Fulham and the West Ham defeats for the men's side. If we win those 2 games, we're top of the league and we're clear right now. That's the difference. And obviously that West Ham game, yes, you're right. Had we have won that, we would be joined in the WSL at the top right now. Very, very frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. Nelson says, if we were going to spend 100 million on a forward, can't that money be used instead as an offer for the contract of Mbappe? I'm no accounting whiz, so help me out. Yeah, Nelson, it's not as simple as that. So with transfer fees, they are amortized across the length of a contract up to 5 years. And so if you spend 100 million pounds on a player in terms of a transfer fee and then the wages are significantly lower, what it means is that 100 million pound fee gets spread across 5 years. So 20 million a year. If you were to sign a player on a free transfer and then you had to pay a signing on fee and you had to pay 100 million in wages, let's say, per year, that shows up on the accounts for that year. So it's incredibly expensive. So no, it doesn't work that way, Nelson, I'm afraid. And yeah, I'm not surprised. Finance is a complicated world, and it's certainly no shame in not understanding how it works, because it can be very tricky indeed. Patrick says Rice seemed to be limping at the end of the West Ham game. Has he been seen in training since? Yes, he's trained this week, Patrick, so he should be fine for today. Thomas says Saka suffers from the media being negative against Arsenal all the time. Do you think that's true? Saka, I think, sometimes escapes it, to be honest. I think Saka actually gets more of an easier ride compared to plenty of other Arsenal players like Gabi Jesus or Kai Havertz. Is it because he's English? Is that a reason as to why? Maybe. So getting the same kind of Harry Kane preferential treatment, if you will. But I know we're probably referencing what Rio Ferdinand was saying regarding him and Foden. There's no doubt in my mind that if Saka was in Foden's position at Man City, he would have won as much, and if not, performed better than Foden at City. So, yeah, I'd start all 4 of them in the team. I think Rice, Bellingham, Foden, midfield 3, and then you've got Saka, Kane, and the left-hand side is trickier, isn't it? Because you've got Sterling and Grealish and Rashford. Got a lot of options as England, and yet they've got one of the worst coaches that they could possibly have. Arthur says, Tom, do you go to the press conference with several questions in case someone asks the question that you've prepared? Also, have you ever had the opportunity to ask the first questions? It doesn't work that way in terms of kind of first questions, because the broadcasters will get the first ones, and then the papers will get the next ones, and then obviously there's an embargo section. So usually Sky or TalkSport, depending, and BBC, of course, whoever's there, and the Premier League as well, their own reporters will get the first questions. But yes, you do go with multiple questions prepared, because there's obviously always going to be a situation where something you've already asked has been asked already, and usually whenever I'm there, when we are either one of the last or the last to ask the question, so in the broadcast section. So yes, you always should go prepared with multiple questions, just in case what you've planned on asking doesn't happen. And sometimes you don't get the answers you want. Trust me, I've been on the end of not just from Arteta, but players as well that don't want to answer the question that you prepared, that you thought about, and you think it's a really good question. Then ultimately, it doesn't work out that way. Yeah, I really, really was frustrated. Paul says, I'm going to tell Laura and Sophie that you forgot about the women playing today. It's just a little slip, Paul. Don't you worry. And I will be forgiven. Trust me, the amount of promotion and bigging up I do with the women's game, I think I can afford one little slip like that. And Magamba says, how is it worse? He took it to a Euro final. Trust the process. Oh, my goodness me. People look at Southgate and say he took England to a European Championship final that they lost against an Italian side that they should have beaten comfortably and see it as a success. And I'm sorry, but it's just not. Like, this is the difference between Southgate and Arteta. England, where they have been, where they have got to, they have underachieved. Arsenal, under Arteta, what they've done with him, they have overachieved, especially last season. And then this season, we're now fighting towards the expectations of challenging for the title. England should have got to the final of the World Cup and they should have won the European Championship. And they did neither of those things and they underachieved because the manager wasn't good enough. They're the team to do it without question. The team was good enough to do it. For Arsenal, and in comparison with Arteta, they don't have the team that was expected to win the title or to win the FA Cup when they were knocked out by City and then obviously by Liverpool this season as well. Those weren't surprises when we got knocked out. The one that you do hold against Arteta is the European stuff. Like the Europa League, underachieved, disappointing, categorically. It's been a failure in the Europa League under Arteta, without question. But all Southgate has done is underachieve as England manager for me. All he has done is underachieve. Bulgaria says, England better than France? No, but they are better than Croatia, mate. So, sure, the World Cup the last time, but I'm talking about the World Cup where ultimately he lost to Croatia in the semi-finals. That's what I'm referring to. Patrick says, agree with you on Southgate. I really thought England should have won at the last World Cup. I'm not sure. I can't turn around and say that we should have beaten France. I think France are better than England, but certainly I think we should have been perhaps better and more competitive than we were in that game. I think we went out of a bit of a whimper against France. I know that we missed that penalty and Kane certainly bears the blame for that. But yeah, I feel like we still technically could have done more, but I think ultimately you can't really be too frustrated about that. Gooner Legend says, I think you owe me an apology about Mbappe, Tom. I don't think I do, mate. Until he signs for Arsenal, I will continue to hold this position. And I don't think you've got any evidence whatsoever to suggest that I deserve to apologise to anyone that said that we should be in the conversation for Mbappe in terms of signing him. Arteta said the perfect answer to that question. Until we sign him, my apologies will remaining firmly in my pocket, mate. Archangel says, agreed, Tom. England have amazing players and they're underachieving. England are Tottenham of the international world. Clive says, Tom, what are your thoughts on Zubimendi? Do you rate him? I do rate him, Clive, yes. I think that he's an excellent competitor for this squad. I think you've got Declan Rice and you've got obviously Partey and Jorginho, but we don't know what's going to happen with those two. And I think what Zubimendi does, if you're looking at defensive midfielders in the world right now, he is up there amongst, those early to mid-20s, going into mid-20s players that if you add him to your squad, you've got excellent depth of coverage. He's more similar to Jorginho than he is to Rice for me when I watch him play. He's a really good controller. And I think in a better side, it would really elevate his game. And I think, whilst you look at certain strikers and you think, would their game be elevated at Arsenal? I'm not so sure because they play in different types of systems. But Zubimendi, although I think he didn't have the best of games against PSG, and I think that's been used against him quite significantly. I think harshly so. If we make judgments of players of just one game, especially in a team in which they're always going to suffer, and they're missing a fair few players, Real Sociedad at the moment as well, like Tierney, for instance, I think that's harsh to judge him based on one game. I saw Harry do a video on him, and look, you can certainly analyze players based off one game if you want to, but I think you have to take into account the bigger context. This is somebody that is far better than what he showed against PSG, and I think he's suffered in the public opinion a bit since that PSG game, as Yomi points out. Raf says, with Hato signing a new deal, presumably what defensive option would you go for, if at all? Good question. Who would I go for defensively? I've always thought we're pretty covered as a left side. We've got Kivior, we've got Gabriel. I would only go for Hato, really. Obviously, I know it's kind of preparing for the future in a way, and they saw it as a bit of a financial deal that wasn't one they should miss. But with him signing a new contract, I'm not sure that's the case anymore. I think that a left-sided defender is not necessarily as needed as a right-sided option because Tomiyasu offers loads of coverage. Timber can play on both sides. We've got Kivior and Gabriel. I'd lean more towards signing a right-sided defender than a left-sided one. The question of who is a tougher one. I'll have a think, Raf, and I'll get back to you, mate, on that one. But then I might get sparked by some inspiration in the chat. But off the top of my head, I'm nothing's necessarily coming to mind. Although, yeah, well, Branthwaite is a left-footed player. I do like Branthwaite at Everton, but he's a left footer. Darren Diamande is a great shout at Sporting. Yeah, fantastic young player. Ivory Coast International, certainly one that could be on the list of options as well. Inacio says Yomi, another Sporting player as well. And yeah, Peter says, Tom, do you think that you could ever podcast like Henry or Bergkamp played? I mean, that's a tall order, mate. But don't sell yourself short. So yeah, sure, why not? Marilyn says technical. Saka is British, not English. Obviously, as there's no GB football team in internationals, then he's entitled to play for England. I don't know where that comes from, Marilyn, to be honest. I mean, isn't he both? Where was he born? He was born in England, wasn't he? He was born in, which is also part of Britain. Does it matter? Why do we care? Why do we care so much? P Sharp says, new defenders, I'd sign none. The squad is big enough, especially with Ruel Waters as well. Is Ruel Waters good enough is the question. We have to ask that question. Is he good enough to play for the senior side? Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen enough. He's not been given the opportunity yet, really, to be able for us to know. But maybe there's a reason behind that. Perhaps there is a reason. So yeah, let's wait and see. JKO says, Tom, all true, by the way. I have a 1K everyday like button on my YouTube. Unfortunately, this only works for me when I'm told the lineup of a certain Arsenal live event. Any chance that you could help me with that? Oh, if only I could. That's a shame that you won't like the video unless I reveal the surprise lineup for Thursday's podcast. But I'm afraid you're going to have to wait, mate. I'm afraid you're going to have to wait. And if it means costing you a like, I'm afraid I'm going to have to keep that like held back. Rastas, I think we need one more. We have 7 realistically, so we probably need one. And any injury shows that we're quite short. I like Diamande, to be fair. Euro 2, Walters is a bit of a question mark, yes. But I do think Diamande is definitely up there with some top options. And Nasio, we've been linked to quite heavily before. Don't know if that means that we're going to move for him. I think with the Hato link, that surely kills Kivior's position for me. Unless they just use Tomiyasu on the right. But I feel like if Hato comes in and you need to give him minutes at senior level, that really does kill Kivior's pathway. But you've got to be ruthless. If you think you can sign a better player, sign a better player. And there's interest from Italy and Kivior, or maybe you can make a profit on him. So that's maybe one to look out for. Chris says, there's a guy who'll be free this summer. His name is Cedric Suarez, and he's a baller. Should we sign him? Drago says Kivior is a centre-back. He is a centre-back, yes. So is Hato, by the way. I know he can play at left-back, but Yoel Hato is also a centre-half. It's worth pointing out. He's not a left-back, even though he can play there. But if you look at the games Hato has played this season, if we have a quick look, he's played 25 at centre-half and 6 at left-back. So, yes, Kivior is certainly a centre-back, as is Hato, which is another reason why if Hato was to come in, I think it would probably block or at least usurp or undermine the pathway of Kivior as well. Andrew says, are you still planning to record the live event and then publish on YouTube? That is the hope, Angela. It depends upon the technicals of the event, but that is my hope that I will be doing. At the very minimum, I'm hoping it'll be on audio. I'm hoping to film it as well. But at the very minimum, there'll be an audio version. I'm hoping they'll be able to record it live, but I need to speak with the event about that this week. And Zoom UK says, who here is going to be going on Thursday? There's a fair few people coming. I think there'll be a room close to 100 people in there, so it's going to be great. Benji says, could we go back in for someone like Locatelli for the 8? Arteta never really lets targets go. Locatelli, he's disappeared, isn't he, off the face of the earth? That name is just not being spoken about at all. I think we maybe dodged a bit of a bullet perhaps with that one. Damien says, time is running out for me. I'm glad Roscoe, actually, who put that comment in the other day, and we were all wondering, what on earth is he talking about? He tuned in at the time where I actually said those words about another player and repeated it, and it just came across out of context. Very, very dark indeed. B-Max says, what's your thoughts on Charles de Ketelaere, the Belgian player currently for, is he at Milan, I think? Would you sign him if Smith Rowe were to be sold? I think the idea of selling Smith Rowe is actually because we're really well stocked. If anything, Fabio Vieira, I think I'd be more inclined to move on than Smith Rowe. It depends upon the fee that you could get for both players. But I am still keen to see what Fabio Vieira can contribute and Smith Rowe can contribute to this team. But Charles de Ketelaere, I don't really know if he's pushed on enough since moving away from Anderlecht. But yeah, let's wait and see. Let's go to Ezra says, I cannot wait for the Porto game. Me neither. Darren says, I argued with younger players who would play ping pong rather than socialising with older players, contributed to Klinsmann losing his job as well. Interesting conversation going on about international management. And it's interesting, isn't it? I think about how player groups are defined. I think the England team have got a great camaraderie between all age groups, to be fair, as well. And that's certainly something that works in England's favour. But I just think we are a top manager away from winning more and more at that level. Benji says, Smith is definitely better than Charles de Ketelaere, especially in the Premier League. Let's not get a shiny new toy for the sake of it. I do tend to agree. Yomi, are we collecting 3 points today? I certainly hope so and think so. It'd be an absolute devastation if we don't. Stephen says, we've only got 251 likes and there's nearly 800. Well, there's over 700 of you, well over 700 of you watching. So if you've not dropped a like on the video yet already, please make sure you do. Thank you to those that helped us to reach our like records for one of these shows since we started yesterday. I was really worried about yesterday's show, but it being Saturday as well, weekends are always a challenge. So it's up to you guys to really step up on these days and make sure you're hitting that 1K like challenge. So please help us out. Borough Gehringer says, who would you like to see replace Southgate? I think the most natural and obvious English choices. I don't believe that the England manager has to be English, by the way. And for those that do, I really don't understand why. But for me, I think that either one of Graham Potter or Eddie Howe should be looked at and considered. Eddie Howe, depending upon how he gets on with how we continue as Newcastle, because I think there is some pressure there for Eddie Howe at Newcastle. I think Newcastle will eventually move on from Eddie Howe, and they think they've kind of outgrown him somewhat. But I think he's a very good coach, and probably the best English coach that there is out there at the moment. If not, Graham Potter is there. I think also another really good coach. I think they're the two I look at right now, and I certainly rate them more than Gareth Southgate. But if we're looking at globally, what managers? I mean, international football, I think, would really suit Jose Mourinho. And I think that I'd love to see Jose Mourinho at international level. Whether that's with England, I don't know. I'd hate him at Arsenal. But maybe there's something about Jose Mourinho as England manager that just really excites me. And yeah, that would be quite special. He did an interview where he talked about turning it down in the late 2000s as well. But I wouldn't be against it for England. I really wouldn't. I really, really wouldn't. Jurgen Klopp says Bazzer, he's taken a bit of a sabbatical. I'd be interested to see. But there's that. I don't know if he said that he'd ever manage England. Did he include that in his speech? Because I know that Liverpool fans have a bit of a thing with the national side, didn't they? So I don't know if Klopp would be, in some ways being viewed as betraying Liverpool fans somewhat if he went and managed the England national team. So, but I don't really know what the history of that is. But I'm sure I'm aware of there being kind of a thing about the England national side. But I can't say that for sure. It's very, very accusatory without knowing the facts. But I'm sure I remember there being something about that. But yeah, imagine the Mourinho memes, says Damien. Absolutely. Morgan says, Tom, if no one has said it already, I have to say, really nice shirt. Thanks, mate. This is one of my favorites. The old training, I think it was the European training kit from last season. It is, yeah. Bulgarian Gunnar says, I'd love to see you all pulling your hair out watching Jose part the bus. The thing is, he's got so much attacking talent with England. I think he would still play pretty attacking football with us. But in the big games or in finals and things like that, he'd know how to play in the best possible way as well. So, yeah. One to look out for. Vala says, Tom, do you think Rice will be taking corners today, considering his record in the past few games? Also, how many corners do you think we'll get? Over 5.5, perhaps? Are you trying to get betting advice from me, mate? Is that what you're doing? I'm not going to give you betting advice, I'm afraid. I can't do that. So I'm terrible at it. That's why I've not done it for years and years and years and years. So, yeah, there you go. Let's go to Wally says, were you surprised that Arteta has been speaking about a player as openly as Mbappe in recent press conferences? He usually brushes the rumours aside. He did it in a really shrewd way, Wally, to be honest. He talked about it in the sense of the general side of it, as in like the biggest players in the world. Arsenal need to be involved in that. And I think it was a really clever way. He didn't mention Mbappe by name. I know he was asked specifically about him, but he didn't use his name. He used the general kind of term of the biggest players Arsenal need to be involved in them. I remember asking him a question. I asked him a question about Mykhailo Mudryk, but I didn't use Mykhailo Mudryk in the question. And I was talking about, like, I asked him a question around the idea of having to overpay for certain players or coming to terms with the fact that now you have to pay way over market value to get players that you don't necessarily value that high. And it got a really good answer, actually, from Arteta from that question. So it's about how you ask the questions. And also, while I think that naming Mbappe in the question from the report, I think it's from the BBC that did it, there was a risk that he may not have answered it. But I think he did a great job in asking the question as well. So there you go. Vela says it's a genuine question, though. His assist per corner stat is probably quite high. He should be on set pieces without a doubt, and Rice has been brilliant for those. So, and we're up against a Burnley side that aren't as good defensively from set pieces as they used to be, or as offensively good as they used to be either. I think it's going to be a very intriguing game today. I think we might end the show there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Very much appreciate your time, as always. There's Premier League action, of course. We haven't really run through those Premier League fixtures for today, so we'll do that before we leave. Early kickoff, Liverpool against Brentford at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Burnley against Arsenal at 3, with Fulham against Villa, Newcastle against Bournemouth, and Forest against West Ham and Spurs with Wolves. And then the 5:30 kickoff is that big Man City-Chelsea game. That's going to be interesting indeed. Sheffield United play Brighton. Luton play Man United tomorrow. Both of those games are on Sunday. And then we've got a Monday night fixture between Everton and Palace. And then Brentford, Man City, and Liverpool-Luton take place in midweek. But we'll talk about those closer to the time. Have a fantastic Saturday. I hope you enjoy yourselves. I'm having a day off today. I'm not working. An Arsenal game, and I'm not working. Joyous. I actually get to sit down and watch and react as a fan without having to worry about writing about a story after the game, which is going to feel a little bit alien today, actually, but I'm working tomorrow instead. Yeah, it's going to be nice. I might do a show straight after full time. So just watch out for that. We may have a game. We may have a show straight after full time. So if you want to tune in, I might even do it as a phone-in show. So just watch out for that, depending on how it goes. I'm either going to do it as a podcast with some guests, or I'll do it as a phone-in show, or I might just hop on and have a chat with you all. But we should have a show for you around 5 o'clock. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Have a fantastic day. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.